This is a video tutorial on the MLS property type single family form. This document is also known as Exhibit A. This document is to be used in conjunction with the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. When you're filling out the listing agreement, you'll notice at the end of page 3 there is a place for your seller to initial for this document. So you see how here it says seller acknowledges receipt of a complete copy of this listing contract and attached Exhibit A. That document refers to this property type. So if you're doing a single family, if you're listing a single family home, then you will want to use the property type single family. I'm going to cover the single family form separate from the condo form because they are different. So today's tutorial is on the single family home MLS property type form. Okay, so we're going to start off by talking about our form here, and that everything to do in this form, all of these fields that need to be filled out, are fields within the matrix system. So when you go and you're looking on matrix for a property in a specific building, or you're looking in a specific neighborhood, all of the information that's in matrix is derived from the information that's put on this form. This form is used for the purpose of inputting into the MLS system. So all of these fields here that need to be filled out will help whoever is going to be inputting your listing into the MLS. This would be that property data sheet that's used. Now, a lot of the information in here you might already know off the top of your head, but I'm going to show you where to get certain information in case maybe you weren't sure. So starting with the TMK number, which is one of the most important things here, is going to be found through many different areas online. So if you listen to the property research video, that video goes through every single place that you can go to do research that I use myself. So for example, one of the places that we would go is we would go into we'd go into Real List. So you would log into your matrix system and you would follow the instructions to get to the Real List section, and you would plug in your information. So I'll show you a little bit of how I kind of did that here. So what I did was, I'm in Real List, so I plugged in the address of my property, and then I went and I hit search, and that will either pull up a list of things that match what you put in, or it will pull up the actual property if you put in all the details for it. So this is the public record here for 69 Uiki Circle, and this was a property that we had at one time, so I thought I would use this as a sample. And if you scroll up to the top here, it gives you a picture of what the last listed picture looks like. It tells you bedrooms and baths, square footage, year it was built. All of this information here is going to be used on that form, the MLS property type form. So you should print this out, or just be able to toggle back and forth to your zip forms. Okay, so now that I have this information here, and you can scroll down too, another good thing to do is to pull up the old MLS listing. And I'll do that real quick too so you can see. Find that here. It's usually highlighted for you. See, it says listing information, MLS listing number. This number, if you click on it, it will pull up the last listings for this property. So you'll see a whole history here of every time that it was listed. So what I want to do is I want to go to the most recent one, which is sort of hard to determine by just looking at this list, but I can just tell these are way old numbers, so I'm just going to pull this one up because I know that's the one. And this is the whole MLS sheet here, the printout for the listing, how it appeared when it was listed before. Let's say you're the new listing agent, maybe 2 years later, you can see here that Kelly Rita had the listing before, but now you're the listing agent. You can actually take this and utilize a lot of the information that's already on here. You can actually just sort of copy and paste sort of thing. But what I want to do is encourage you to remember that you are using an old MLS sheet. So where some of this stuff may still be accurate, like the bedrooms and baths, maybe something has changed. Maybe they've added on a lanai, or they've added on another level or something that may have changed the square footages. So if you know that there have been no updates or anything like that since they bought the place, then you could probably just copy and paste all this information. When I say copy and paste, what I really mean is you could just copy and put onto that sheet. Um, and just have it with you and just like type it all in. There's no way to just take this and input it into your that MLS input sheet. You're going to actually just have to take this, print it out, and have it with you so you can just fill it out. But all of this information is very helpful. But I can tell you right now that one of the things that will definitely be different will be the assessed values. So when we get down here to the assessed values, all of this has to do with 2011. So you're obviously not going to use this information because it's old. You're going to need to look up the new information, and I will show you how to do that. But this is something very helpful to have with you, as well as other things. Another place to go for research is the city and county of Honolulu, where you can go and look up the actual square footage if you weren't sure, and maybe there wasn't a listing before. This will help you with the square footage. And again, a lot of these places that I'm toggling back and forth through you can go and take the property research class, which will explain how to get into these programs and how to use them and that sort of thing. So for right now, I'm just sort of showing you that you want to have these things open or printed out when you're doing your MLS property type sheet. So going here to the let's see, there's another program called Hawaii Information. And so what you want to do is log into Hawaii Information and do the same thing that you did in Realist, which is pull up the tax record. Sometimes there is information that can be ascertained from this and cannot be ascertained from the Realist document. So it's kind of helpful to have both. There are also maybe times where you find a discrepancy in the square footage. Like let's say Hawaii Information had larger square footage than Realist, and that can happen, and it does happen from time to time. You would have backup documentation. You would want to go ahead and use the larger square footage, of course, because you want to show that the house is bigger. We always want to have backup documentation for all of the data that we're going to be sharing on the MLS. Okay, so let's go back to our zip forms and let's start with the first thing here. So again, we've got the TMK number. So if we were to go back to our real list and scroll up, we'll have our TMK number here. So you got that there. And listing agent MLS ID number. This is going to be your board information, your board number, your MLS number that you got when you joined the board, that number that you log into Matrix with. So that was what we go there. Now, just to point out too here, all of the items that are highlighted in bold with a little asterisk next to it, those are required fields. So whatever happens, you must fill something out here, because otherwise the person inputting this into the system would not be able to move forward to the next step. So these boxes must be filled in. So again, your MLS ID number. Now you're not going to have an MLS number, so don't worry about this one, because really you're just filling out the sheet for the person to input. And when the person is inputting your listing, they don't have an MLS number yet. The whole purpose is, in fact, this really shouldn't even be here, but when you do get an MLS number, it would be helpful for you to maybe write it in there for your file at least. Okay? The co-listing agent code, it's not required, but if you did have a co-listing, you would definitely want to put that person's MLS ID number there as well. Then we have the list price, so whatever your list price is going to be, that would go there. And it's already these boxes are already filled to calculate dollars and data. So if like you're in a box where it requires a dollar amount, it should automatically calculate the dollar sign. So I don't think you really need to put that in there, but I'll just show you here. So see how it calculated the commas as well as the period and the dollar sign. So you don't need to do that. If you are in a box that requires a date, like listing date, and I click in the box, it should pop open a calendar for you to choose from, and then you would just simply click the date, and that should just plug that in there. And the same thing with expiration date. Okay, so now we're going to go back a little bit here. I jumped a little ahead there. So we're going to talk about land recorded. So this would be when you were taking your real estate classes and you did your test. You may have learned about land court versus regular system, and that's what this box here is talking about. And there are, if you were to click over the boxes, you'll see where it'll tell you a little bit about what the field is. It may not explain what it actually is, but it'll tell you how many characters fit and that sort of thing. But if you click on it and you click the down arrow, some of it may have like a list of things to choose from. So even though you don't see it, like here you don't see it, but if you click in the box, you'll see the down arrow, and that will allow you to choose something within the box. So if you click on the land recorded box and click the down arrow, you'll see you've got dual system, land court, or regular. So if you're not sure what it is, where you can find this information is off of the public record. So I'll go to my Hawaii information, and if you see here, this is a good way to tell if it's a regular system versus um, land court. If you see the letters DOC, document, that stands for regular system. If you see the letters TCT, then that would be considered land court. If you see DOC and TCT anywhere in here, then you know you're dealing with a dual system. Okay, so that's how you can find that information for land recorded. And go to the next one. Listing type. I'm not really going to cover what EA stands for because it is a whole other topic, but you're almost always going to put in ER for exclusive right to sell. That's what ER stands for. So you're probably never going to do EA. If you are doing exclusive agency listing, you're probably going to know about it and put that in there. But we almost never do that, so don't worry about that. Okay, and then going down to the next line here, compensation. Okay, this is the box where you're going to put in the percentage that you're going to give to a cooperating broker. So don't put the full amount of your compensation that the seller is paying the company. So let's say, for example, your listing agreement says 6%. Don't put 6% here. You're going to do whatever it is that you're going to offer to a cooperating broker. So in this box, you're going to put in whatever you're going to do. So like if it's 6% and you're going to give up half, then you would put in 3%. If it's 5%, then you would do 2.5%. That type of thing. Whatever it is that you're going to offer to a cooperating broker. Okay, I'm really only going to cover basic stuff, but I'll just kind of cover it real quickly. Compensation subject to, if you're dealing with a lender where the compensation, they've got some sort of restriction on compensation, you're probably going to know about it anyway and know what to put here, but there are options to choose from in here. Now remember, it's not bolded or highlighted, so it's not required, so you can go ahead and skip it if you're not sure. This dual variable compensation is quite a confusing thing. You're probably not going to ever have to deal with this, but it has something to do with the way that the commission is structured. For example, if the seller is agreeable to paying like let's say a 5% commission, but he wants to offer 3% to a cooperating broker, but you take 2. Anything that has to do with the splitting up of the commission that isn't the norm of a 50-50 split with the cooperating broker. I believe that's what that box is. If you're not sure and your seller is doing something funky with the commission, it's best to probably talk with your broker about that. But in this case, if you're just doing a simple 50-50 split with the commission, then you would just simply choose no. And let's see, again, you've got things that are not required. These are a little bit more lengthy topics that you're probably not going to even have in your situation. If it's a foreclosure, I don't think you'll be doing these, but if you do, obviously you're going to know what to fill in here because you'll be talking with the lender, and that information will be absolutely something that you would know to put in here. So I'm not really going to cover it in too much depth. Now, okay, now we've got show internet. If you were to click in this box and choose yes, that means that the listing will appear on the internet and will appear on all of the other subsequent broker websites. So for example, if your client does not want you to advertise on the Coldwell Banker site, the Prudential site, or Zillow, then you're probably going to have to choose no. And that way, the matrix system will suppress it from actually going out there on the internet. I don't know if you will have any clients like that, but there are people who have very exclusive homes that do not want their address shown, do not want to sign on the property, and don't want their listing advertised on the internet. They may be okay with it going out on the MLS system, but they don't want it shown on the internet. But by choosing yes, you're putting it out there to like hundreds and hundreds of websites. And okay, so this next one here is again not a required field, but it is if you would like to show the address. So again, if you've got a client who doesn't want to show their address, they want to be a little bit more private, it will appear on the internet, but if you choose no, then that means that the address will not show up on the listing on the internet. It will just maybe show a neighborhood or a street name, but not the actual number of the address. But then again, if you do want the address to be shown, then you would choose yes. Are you going to put a lockbox on the property? If so, then you would choose yes here, or simply click no. I would not put any kind of serial numbers or lockbox numbers in your listing whatsoever. It's definitely something that has to do with security. So you can use your judgment, but I wouldn't give out that information in the listing. I would have people call you for that. Okay, listing service. This is, again, you're going to mostly be a full service agent, but if you were only, like maybe you're helping a friend and they weren't going to pay you a full commission and you just wanted to help them out by getting the listing out on the internet and in the MLS, then you would have these choices here. But most of the time you're probably going to be full service. Okay, now the seller's initials, it's not a field to fill out, but again, a place for the owner, the seller, to initial for the internet and, well, pretty much for this section right here, everything to do in this section, but definitely the showing of the internet, probably why those initials are there. GET, tax paid by seller. If you're going to be charging tax, then you would say yes, and if not, you would choose no. This is street name, street number, street name, street suffix. So you would put, like if this was 69 Niewiki Circle, you would put 69 here, and then you would put Niewiki here, and then circle here, and then city, zip. And if you happen to have a unit number, there are times where you might be doing a single family home that's a CPR property that might have like an A, B, or C, and you would simply put that there. Okay, now we scroll down to elementary school, middle school, high school. Now, if you're not sure of the schools, a good place to look would be, again, you would look at the MLS that we had printed out here. You can go by the old MLS. You would see the elementary school, middle school, high school, and just take that and put it into your boxes here. Number of bedrooms and baths, that again can be taken from any one of these public record websites. So you've got let's see, building bedrooms and baths, and then of course half baths. Is it going to be offered furnished? It's not mandatory or required, but if it was furnished, I would definitely want to put that it is furnished. You can put full, negotiable, or partial. New development construction, this would be, of course, if it's a brand new home or brand new development, you would just simply put yes. Year built, again, that can be taken from the public record. So like I'm in the Hawaii Information Service right now, and they have year built. And then if you were to go to the real list, I think I lost that window, but anyway, oh, here I am, real list. So on real list, you'll see year built. And again, if you just wanted to use real list, they do have bedrooms and baths. Now, one thing I want to point out here is that notice how I was over here on the Hawaii Information screen, and it says 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. But let's say, for example, MLS said 4 bedrooms. Sorry, I got lost there. Sorry about that. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths. I want to point this out because this could be confusing. A lot of times, in fact, I think most of the time, if there's a half bath and you look here, it might very well say 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, even though it's just a half bath. And I don't know why that's a glitch with the real list system, but if you are looking at both of these different public records, then you want to make a note of that. If you do see a discrepancy, you might want to go back and double check if it's just a half bath. Okay, and scrolling along, we've got the square footage, living area, other area, open lanai, all of these square footages. If you're not sure, or I would definitely try to get plans from the owner if you don't have anything like that and you need to go with public records. Sometimes the public records could be different, but if you're ever not sure and you want a definite definite answer is to go to the city and county website, which again I have that all of that information how to get there on that other video tutorial. But this is the City and County of Honolulu property assessment website. And what I did was, if you notice, I went to the page, put in the address, did a search, and a lot of the information that I'm toggling back and forth through can all still be received from this direct website. So you can get information on um, the property. Like if I were to go to residential, it'll tell me how many bedrooms and baths. It'll tell me the year built. It'll tell me the assessed values, which is something that you're going to also need when you're filling out the MLS property type sheet. And but what I like to use this website for is the square footages. Sometimes the owner doesn't know, or maybe the house seems bigger to you than what may have was listed before, or maybe you haven't listed it before. I usually like to go here and tally up the square footage. And so you notice here it has main, this is the main area of the house. So this would be the roofed living area. And you've got porch sealed shed roof. That would be considered a covered lanai. And if you look at it says sealed, means like ceiling. That could tell you that it's covered. So you've got roofed covered area, and then it gives you the actual square footage for the garage. So this is pretty helpful for you if you're not sure about square footage. Okay, now we're heading on over to parking. Parking total. So what they used to do was just ask you what to do with how many car parking. Now they put in like a total here. So if you've got a 2-car garage and you've got a 2-car driveway, I would probably put 4 parking here just because it sounds better. And it is, you can't fit 4 cars there, so it's not like you're lying. So I would put however many cars you could fit into the garage and how many cars you could fit into the driveway and put the total number there. The land square footage, again, can be ascertained from the public record. So I'm on the Hawaii information, and here is the land size, 10,000 square feet. And I'll put that into this section here for the land square footage. Okay, zoning. So the zoning is like the actual land use ordinance. You would go to your research and then you would choose. There's actually 2 different types of zoning, and both of them I do believe go into the MLS system. But how to find that is by looking. This is Hawaii information, so zoning LUO. So you've got R10, which is the main one, but there's also a city and county one as well. I would probably just simply just put LUO. I'm sorry, you choose the LUO one because this is the main one, R10, but it'll probably go ahead and autofill from tax records anyway for the person filling this out. So I would just take that and stick it here in where it says zoning. If you have, again, like when you're in zip forms and you're working and you've done several of these, anytime you've ever put something in here, it will automatically save it. So sometimes in these drop down menus you will have a bunch of stuff that maybe you've done before and you just click it so you don't have to retype it. Flood zone. So we're going to go back to our Hawaii information, and we find that it is in flood zone AE. You can also get this off of Realist. So sorry, I'm not working off of Realist. I do like to use both of these. So here's the zoning information. So you see how it says R10, and you've got they seem to be the same, so it shouldn't be a problem. And then you've got, let's see, where was what was I looking for? I was looking for flood zone. I'm not sure if flood zone appears on here. Let me see. Yeah, see, this might be one of those things where it doesn't show you flood zone on the real list. It should, though. I'm kind of surprised I can't find that. Well, anyway, so if you are having trouble finding something, that's why I like to have 2 different versions here so that I can find the appropriate information. So let's go back, and we would then put in our flood zone, and this has a whole list of all of the flood zones, so you just scroll down and choose the appropriate one. I think it was zone AE, and just pop that in there. If you're working with the development project and you want to put in the developer, or if you have a well-renowned architect working on that has done the property, did the architectural plans and things like that, you may want to go ahead and put their name because that could be very well something of use for another agent. If you have a specific model name for your new project, you can put that here. The other information down here is all have pertained to management company and community association information. It's not required, but I have to tell you, I get really frustrated with when agents don't fill this out, because a lot of times when I am really interested in a property, I might want to contact the management company before I bother the agent with letting them know I want to do a showing. Maybe my question can simply be answered by calling the management company, like if are there pets allowed, that sort of thing. I don't want an agent to try to circumvent the situation. I just want to go straight to the source. Or maybe the agent doesn't know the answer and I get really annoyed. They may tell me to call the management company, and if I don't have that information readily available, it might be pretty irritating for me. So I would really honestly recommend that you try to put that information in here. Again, this is something that you can get from an old previous MLS, and if that is not there, you can also go and look up other listings in the neighborhood or the building to find out that information. But it is very, very important. And I kind of skipped over it here, but see where it says CPR, yes, no. If you are dealing with the CPR property, then you're going to want to make sure you notate it here, because that would be a major disclosure. So definitely put that there. And again, if you're not sure, you can't find it. If it's not highlighted or bolded, it's not required and you don't need to fill it out. Again, this area is not bolded and required. However, everyone wants to know what the maintenance fees or association fees. So if you have that information, it's very important that you put that in here. Because you're going to get asked for it. Not to mention that when the marketing department gets a hold of this listing, when you when you get everything off to um, new listings at elitepacific.com, when you send everything in to be inputted and all your marketing stuff, this is the information that they're going to use to build your flyers and all of your marketing stuff. So you definitely want to make sure that you put in as much information as possible. Okay, home exemption. Every seller, homeowner has to pay property taxes. A lot of times people will file what they call a home exemption to reduce the taxes. Some people will get, $25,000 off their assessed values, which derive the tax assessment office takes the assessed values of your property to determine what taxes you're going to pay. So if you want to lower those taxes, the more exemption that you can claim, the lower your taxes will be. So some people qualify for 25,000, some people qualify for 80,000, some people qualify for 125,000. Whatever the case is, uh, it's helpful for you to put the home exemption here, because when someone's looking at the listing and they see, like, let's say for example the taxes are $4,000 a month, because that's what you're going to have to calculate it per month. So the taxes are 4,000 a month. So let's say this is obviously a really expensive property, but somebody doesn't want to pay $4,000 a month. That's quite high. If they were to look over here at home exemption and they see the number zero there, that's what they're gonna determine, that's why those taxes are so high. Because the more exemption you have, the lower your taxes are, because it lowers that assessed value of land that the assessors tax you on. So in order to find out what the home exemption is, you go to your property research screen. Either, I don't know if Realist does it, but I know Hawaii Information does it. Is to go up to the very top here. You'll see, I should have went back there. Um, it'll say here the annual taxes. So you've got annual taxes here of 5,105, and then you've got an $80,000 exemption. So when you calculate this divided by 12, because we're gonna do that in the next section here, is taking the annual tax divided by 12, and that's the number you're gonna put on your MLS sheet or your profile sheet. But you're also going to put the $80,000 exemption. So you're going to calculate that monthly tax amount, and then you're going to put in that 80,000 here, so that when it comes out in the MLS sheet, when someone is looking at those taxes, and oh, those taxes are really low, and they come over here and look at the home exemption, they're going to say to themselves, oh, I'm probably not going to be able to qualify for 80,000. I'm probably only going to qualify for 25, or they're not even going to be moving into the house, in which case they can't even claim this. So they might see that although those taxes are low, they can expect them to go up if they buy the house. So you can see how that information is really helpful. Okay, so Let's move on to tax assessed values. So again, you go to your research screen and all your tax assessed values are right here. You just simply copy them and put them on in. Or Realist, if you're on Realist, those tax assessed values are under the assessment and tax section. So you would look at, so here's another good example too, why you want to try to use two different websites is that because Realist is actually behind in their assessed values. So if you put this information into Realist, you might get some realtors kind of scolding you because this information is old because the new tax assessed values are out now. So let's go over here and you see how we have tax assessed values for 2014. The other one only went up to 2013. So you got to keep the information as accurate as possible. So you could theoretically use Realist and not use this and have the old information, but some agents are savvy enough to know that the new assessed values are out. Another place to find the assessed values is the City and County of Honolulu. You would go to assessed values, and again, this would show you everything for 2014, and you're going to get the most up-to-date information from the city and county website. The only reason I wouldn't use this as your main source of information is because it doesn't have everything, and you're just going to have to use a variety of sources of information to fill out your sheet. Okay. So moving down here to the leasehold information, if you have a property that's leasehold, you're going to put in the LH here and fill out all this information. And if you are doing a leasehold property, you're going to know what to put in these boxes. I'm not going to cover it in depth, but if you do have a leasehold property and you're unsure of something like this, then you can always call me or your broker to get a little bit more information about it. But I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If you have a leasehold property, you're going to have had conversation with your owner, and you're going to have a conversation with the management company to get all of this information. So if you're just dealing with a fee simple property, you just put in the FS and move right on to the next section. Now this next section here is public remarks. This is what the public is going to see. You're going to make sure that you don't put any information about yourself, your telephone number, anything like that, because it would be a violation of the MLS rules and regulations. That information is provided down, or that place that you would want to put all your information on how to contact you would be down here in the agent showing remarks. All of this information would go to agents that are showing. And what happens is that if, let's say, you have like an agent from Coldwell Banker who is sending your listing out to one of their clients, they will choose the customer version, which would automatically suppress out all of this agent stuff, and they have no choice but to send all the public remarks. So if you happen to put your name and number in the public remarks, that Coldwell Banker agent sending that copy of the MLS to his client, and let's say that client, loses his number or something and ends up calling you, that's why they don't want you doing that, because you lose that chance of working with that client. So this is a specific place specifically for agent telephone numbers and whatnot. When you are looking at the MLS sheet, which where was that? Okay, here. See all this information here? That information is automatically filled in by your MLS ID number. So this stuff doesn't get input by anybody. This is auto-filled by putting in that MLS ID number when the person doing your input of your listing in the MLS, all that will automatically be filled in. This area is the agent remarks. This is that part where you're typing in what you want to write in there for other agents to contact you with regard to the showing. This section as well as this section all gets suppressed and is not included in the MLS printout when another agent is sending your listing out to somebody. So again, it's really important that you don't put your name and telephone number in the public remarks, and whatever you put in the public remarks, you need to be aware that this is all going out to the public and that it's going to be on all various websites. Okay, now we're on page 2 of the MLS sheet, and this talks about all of the features of the property. I'm just going to kind of go over it really quick, but the big thing I want to tell you right now is that this is something that you really want to sit down with your seller and go through. You can copy and paste from an old MLS, and let me just show you what that looks like. Oh, I did it again. Down here is all of the features of the property. So that second page of that MLS input sheet here, all of these items, everything on this page, once it's input into whatever boxes that you're checking, all of that data would then appear on around in this area on the MLS sheet. So all this stuff here is needs to be entered in on this second page. Now, I also want to make note that all of the items in the MLS sheet and in Matrix when it's input are searchable fields. So, like for example, if you're looking for, whatever you're inputting in here, it's searchable. So, bedrooms and baths is searchable. You can search on price. Um, you can search on parking and things like that. All of these items here as well are searchable. So let's start working on it here by talking about sale conditions. And like I said too, you need to be sitting with your seller to go over this because there might be some things that you may have seen on the old MLS that are different, or maybe there is inaccurate information. But if you sit with your owner to go through it, chances are you're going to get the most accurate information. And of course, you're in the house. It's easier to talk about the house when you're there. Okay, so the first one here, sale conditions. If they're going through any kind of foreclosure, bankruptcy, you need to make sure that you check the appropriate boxes. Uh, what are the terms that the owner is going to accept? I'm not going to cover everything in here because obviously you would have figured out by now if you're going to be they're going to be doing any seller financing. But whatever the cases is, terms acceptable, you're going to want to check off the box. The typical is cash and conventional. Okay, if you're doing anything other than this, you're probably going to know and just check it. Possession, when does the seller want to give possession over to a buyer? So if there's any kind of situation with him moving out or giving up the property, you're going to check the appropriate box. Like, is there going to be a tenant subject to a rental lease, that sort of thing? You want to check the appropriate box. Disclosures, all of the disclosures that apply, you want to make sure that you check it. If they're doing a 1031 exchange, definitely if you're working with an owner, even though you're representing them and they're licensed, you still have to check off that they're licensed. Pets, that sort of thing. Any of these things that would apply. If there's anything in here that doesn't apply, you can still click see remarks and you could put something in the public remarks about it, or maybe even put that in the agent remarks if you don't want the public to see that. The style of the home, most of the time you're going to be, if you're dealing with a single family home, it's going to be a detached single family. If you're working with the CPR property, obviously you're going to choose that. And again, if you're working with townhomes, that sort of thing, then you would just check the appropriate box. How many stories does the house have? You would check all that apply. So it's pretty much a just check all that apply type of a situation. I'm going to try to cover some things that you might get stuck on. Property condition, I think you'll know which box to check here. Lot description, this could be something that you need to look up, which I don't have it on here right now, but if you were to go look at the plat map, and again, that's something that you can learn how to do by listening to the property research class that I did. You can find out what type of lot it is by looking at that. Like for example, rimmed lot, that would be something that would be on top of a hilltop, looking out like a big, like pretty much on the rim of a hill kind of a thing. Wooded area, something that maybe hasn't been cleared, has lots of woods, trees, brush, that type of thing. Amenities, okay, this would be something that you could do either for a condominium or like a subdivision, but also a house. But you would simply just check everything that would apply. And if there's something of an amenity that you want to say, but you don't see it in the list, then you can just check other. Construction, exterior finish. This is something that if you're not sure and the owner doesn't know, as the owner should know, but if he doesn't, or you're not able to get that information, you can get that from one of the tax records. So if you scroll down to the second page of the tax records, it talks about the framing, exterior walls, interior. You can get some of that information from here. You might not be able to get everything, but at least some of it's here that you can put on that page, because I think it is required. So yeah, it's required. Again, on this page, when you're doing the features, anything that's got the asterisk there is going to be a required field. So if you don't put something in these boxes, the person entering your listing is going to get stuck. In fact, the listing will probably get rejected if you don't complete all of the asterisk items. Okay. Roofing, again, if you're not sure, I don't know what to tell you. You might choose other and maybe try to figure it out and put something in here later, but that's something that is required. Floor covering, pretty much by visual inspection, you should know what type of flooring is in the house. Okay, view, you're going to know again by visual inspection and maybe even what someone else listed on the other listing. We check all that apply. Topography, these are things that also can be, I know that I just mentioned it, that can be searched. So like for example, topography, some people do searches on level lots. So um, you got to make sure that you choose all that apply, because even though you have hilly in there, it maybe the property's got some hills and some level lots. You want to try to capture some people, you want to check off level. Location, where is the property in relation on the street? Is it a cul-de-sac, dead end, inside? Inside would be like it's a long street and your property's like in the middle there. It's not on the dead end, it's not on the cul-de-sac, and it's not an end unit. It would be considered inside. What type of roads? Is it a community association with the gated community where the road would be private? Is it paved? Some properties you might do may not be paved. I don't know, but just check off the ones that apply. Here we go again with parking. So if you've got the 4-car parking and you've got a 2-car garage, you can hear this would explain, like if somebody's like, oh, 4 parking, it's only got a 2-car garage. This would help explain your choice of putting the number 4 on that page before. So you put 2-car and then maybe choose carport and garage, or a driveway. Sorry, I would probably choose driveway. Okay, and obviously you've got a bigger driveway or garage or area for a boat, you definitely want to put that, because that again is a searchable field, and somebody that may be looking for a home that's got room for a boat may be putting that in their search criteria. Property frontage, okay, this is a really important one. Again, one of the biggest things that's searched on. So when you are doing this, you check all that apply. If you're dealing with ocean frontage, you might also choose waterfront. If it has a sandy beach front, you would choose that. Obviously, if it's ocean front but doesn't have any sandy beach, you don't want to do that. So you would just use your judgment and choose the right option. Okay, easements. Okay, this is something that can be found on a title report or also a plat map. And again, I didn't have an example of that to show you, but if you look at a plat map, you'll see like dotted lines written in there. It'll say something like sewer, or maybe it might even say HECO. But easements would be things like, cable easement, electric easement, drainage ditch, things like that. You're probably going to know just by being at the house, but if you're not sure and you've ordered a title report, which is something that you probably should have done when you knew you were getting the listing, flip through the title report to see if there's any easements. That would be under the exceptions section in the title report. And I will do a class on title reports, and I will show how you can find an easement and what it looks like in a title report. That'll be a separate class. Okay, security, just check all that apply here. Obviously, if you've got a gated community, that would be one that you would check if the area has video or security patrol. And then, of course, all the utilities that are available. People want to know if it's already hooked up to certain things, like if it's got cable connection. It doesn't have to have, TV hooked up and that sort of thing. It just has to have cable connected. Some people have internet connected as well. So you just go here and check all that apply. Is there a sewer fee? Is it on private water? That type of thing. You're probably going to find all this stuff out by talking to your owner. Other monthly fees, if there was something maybe other than the typical association fee or management fee, you could check it here. For example, Hawaii Kai Marina has a separate marina fee in addition to association fees. So like properties that are along, Kealu'ulakai, Spinnaker Isle, that type of thing, even Quappa Isle, they all have their association fees, but in addition and on top of that, they have to pay a marina association fee as well. So people need to be informed of all of the fees that are involved. And it's not required, as you see, it doesn't have the asterisk there, but again, if you had something there, you want to disclose it. You don't want people coming in and liking the property and then finding out that they don't like the fees. And then you want to check off all of the inclusions, and you would just check everything that would apply. And I would go to town on this, because everything here, when there's lots of inclusions, it looks like the property looks worth the money when you have a lot of inclusions, and there's plenty to choose from. Okay, and if there's anything to be excluded, you would definitely want to make sure that you make mention of that here. Like, let's say there was a chandelier that meant a lot to the owner and he was not leaving that. Most of the things that are attached to the house are assumed are going to be attached and sold with the home. So, like bookshelves and ceiling fans and things like that. Anything like that that might be attached to the property and make the home look like, $1 million home, that the seller says, well, I know that, that's going to be a big deal, but I really want to take my chandelier. It means a lot to me. You want to make sure you say it here, because that way when a listing agent is showing the property and they go into that and they see, oh, the chandelier is not going, okay, well, I know that now. I can make an educated decision on how to proceed here when I know that certain things are not going to be left. And you would just check all that apply. And then if there is a pool, you would check what type of a pool it is. Occupancy, this is not a required field, and I just kind of touch on this real quick. You obviously want to put in here, if it is vacant, well, sorry, you don't obviously want to put something in here. What I mean to say is that if you want to check off that it's owner occupied, so that you let people know that there is an owner there or a tenant, you can do so. But here's what I my experience is with setting up showings, is that whenever I have like a 2-day window of setting up showings, what I tend to do first is print out everything that's available, and I flip through everything and I look through all the vacants, and I go to look through all the ones that have either a vacant property on lockbox, or I go to one that says owner occupied, 8-hour notice. Anything that's really easy to show, I put at the top of my list. So if you check owner occupied 48-hour notice, yours may go to the end of the pile. I'm just saying that that's my experience that I've had when I set up showings. That's what I do. I can imagine that's what other agents do as well. So I would just use some caution here with checking this. You don't have to check it off. So whatever you choose to do, I told you why I do it that way. It's up to you. Okay, showing. So this is where you would say whatever kind of notice that you want to give to an agent. So if you do have a tenant and you have to provide the 48-hour notice, you're going to have to say, you're going to have to at least let people know that. Or if you choose not to let people know that, just keep in mind that you're going to get phone calls. And then when you say, oh yeah, it's tenant occupied, and yeah, I have to give 48 hours notice, you might get a lot of irritated agents on you because there is a restriction for seeing the place. One of the big reasons why I don't put anything here is most of the time when I'm dealing with owner occupants, most owners are agreeable to just going and doing their thing while you do the showing. So if it's vacant, I like to put it. If it's owner occupied, I like to kind of like either leave it off. But if it's tenant occupied, I tend to always check tenant, because I am always dealing with notice issues with tenants. So once you've figured out what you're going to do here, this is when you go and you put in whatever showing request you have. So I would like to typically put in here 8 hours notice, because that way you're not asked to just get in your car and come down and see it. So 8 hours notice would be nice, but I like to have people call me, and I like to sell people on the phone when they call about a property that we have, so that I can get them on the telephone. A lot of times people will just either call you and say, hey, can I do this showing? I like to talk to people before I give them all the information about the get like the lockbox stuff out. So this is another way of getting the people to call you, and you're having an ability to sell the property to another agent. So it's your choice on what you want to do here, and of course it all is dictated to by the owner and how they feel. All right, and then the last thing here is the setbacks, which is, I always tend to put both city and county and of record, because whatever city and county setbacks, if there are any, and obviously if there's anything of record, I'm covered by choosing both of these. So unless you have a special setback that you want to talk about, I would normally just check off city and county and of record. Okay, and this next page here is up to you, but is totally not required. But again, if it's something that you want to do, I think if you wanted to, if you had pictures or something and you wanted to describe the rooms, you could choose the style here, and you could do your room description. And I believe that this is an extra portion of the MLS printout. So if we look at the MLS printout, how it looks now, I want you to keep this also in mind. Whenever you print out a listing like this and it comes down to the end, sometimes all of this information, while it's helpful, it pushes the information down, and quite possibly you can turn this into a 2-page printout. So when I'm printing documents out and I end up printing out one paper, and then like let's say for example this area right here tends to be pushed off onto a page two. That totally annoys me. If I print something out, I want it to come out on one page. I don't need these two lines to show up on a second page. That's so annoying. But sometimes you really can't help it with all this main detail here. But let me tell you, if you fill this part out right here, it's definitely going to go on to a second page. So just telling you that if you do this, that's going to be an extra sheet of paper for the agent who's printing out your information to do. However, on the good side of that, it will definitely show up on the MLS and be viewable for buyers. So it's up to you how you want to do that. If that's something that you want to do for additional marketing, that's totally up to you. And then this down here is all where the signatures go. So as a reminder, as we said at the beginning of this session, this document is to be used in conjunction with the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. And that would be, again, if you go to the exclusive right to sell listing contract, and on page 3, now you understand what this is talking about. So if a seller says, what's Exhibit A, and you haven't provided it to them, you're not going to get them to complete this listing agreement. They're going to feel like it's incomplete because they don't have this Exhibit A. So, and again, as another reminder, I would definitely recommend that you sit with your client and at least go over that second page with them, unless you feel comfortable filling it out on your own. That's what my recommendation would be. So that concludes the tutorial for the MLS property type single family Exhibit A.